We're so glad you're here with us today to bake, and it's always such a fun treat to connect with one another and do fun things together. And we're so delighted to have Jackie Shelton Miller with us this morning and her son Joshua. Um, is he gonna pipe in and say hello? Hi, Joshua. Jacqueline is a parent in our class of 2024, and she is also, you guys are getting a sneak peek announcement here, one of our new Parent Association co-chairs. So that official announcement will be coming out soon, but we are all very blessed to be led by Jackie and her other two co-chairs, which you'll be hearing more about soon. So this morning, I think everyone has, but if you haven't yet updated your name on your Zoom square, please do so, because Jackie will be periodically calling on people just for some casual questions and interactions. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that, or raise your hand or unmute yourself and shout out, and we'll do our best to help you along the way through all the steps. Hopefully everyone has all their ingredients and the recipe nearby, but we're in good hands with Jackie, and I'm going to turn it over to her now. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Leslie, and so nice to see so many of you, several from the class of 2024 that I recognize from our last Challah Bake, and many faces that some that I know in the community and some that I don't, and I imagine the same is true for all of us, particularly the newer families who might not know everyone. So welcome and thank you for providing the opportunity for us to connect in this way. I'm going to just share with you a few things. You're going to end up with a challah dough today that you will be able to bake for Shabbat for tonight. Just a quick question: is anyone making challah for the first time? Okay, so yeah, Lisa, yay! Okay, shehachi on a moment. It's a very easy recipe and very forgiving. I just want to say that. So let me just share with you, I make challah regularly, and since sheltering in place, I've been making challah virtually every week with a small group of women. A couple of the women on here are often part of that group as well. So I'd love to explain, so what I do is how I make the challah, but I'd love to share with you how we're going to do it today. So the first thing I always do when I make challah at home is I put tzedakah in a tzedakah box, because they say that one good deed begets another. So I'm very nice with tzedakah boxes. Julie Lewis recognizes this one from Brandeis. So I do that. So this is what we're going to do. We'll go over the ingredients, and after everyone has everything, then we'll kind of introduce ourselves. We'll have a question. I'm going to share just a few words of Torah, kind of as it relates to set us off, and we'll have a chance. We're going to put ingredients in and ask questions and get to know each. It's a question, but we'll kind of all chime in the process. So that's kind of how it works. So just before we start, to make sure everyone has everything, this is what you need. Some kind of vegetable oil. The challahs are pareve, which means you can eat them with milk or meat, so there's no dairy in them. So vegetable oil, flour, sugar, yeast, salt. I like to add vanilla extract. As I mentioned in the previous challah bake, embarrassingly, but if you thought during Passover that you were not going to be able to get imitation vanilla extract kosher LePesach and you ordered 12 of them, you might still be using them instead of the real thing. But if you have the real thing, I do suggest it. I'm just using up my 12 bottles of Geffen imitation vanilla extract for Passover. So you're going to need an egg, and it's going to be room temperature. So what I usually do is I just put an egg in some warm water from the fridge. So you might want to do that. That'll be ready when you need it. And in recent weeks, I have been proofing the yeast in a separate small bowl first. So I like to do that. It gives the yeast a little more time to bubble up. So if you haven't already made your dough and put your things in your big bowl, I suggest having a separate small bowl to do that. And I think those are all the ingredients. Later, I'll explain to you, I will show you how you can stuff a challah with other ingredients. It's really delicious, but that's once the dough is made. So you still have time to think about ingredients you might like to prepare for that. So Any questions? You'll also need, I guess, a measuring cup, a liquid, for liquid, that's like this. A measuring cup, like for dry ingredients, they're slightly different, and measuring spoons. And I don't know where I put mine, a spatula. Yeah, one sec. Or this is a spoonula from Williamson, or a wooden spoon to mix.
Jackie?
Yes.
I have a question. First of all, I want to introduce Marina, who's working with me. She makes our challah every week.
Hello.
And, so this is going to be really fun for us. I had a question about the oil.
Yes.
Have you used coconut oil before, and how is that compared to using others?
I've used coconut sugar. I have not used coconut oil. I don't love the taste of coconut, but I can't remember if it's refined or unrefined. One of them is a liquid and there's no flavor, and I think it would be totally fine.
And but we can also substitute coconut sugar for regular sugar. Yes,
or date sugar. Yes, I've done that too. My kids don't like it as much. It's not as sweet, but it tastes good. I think it's delicious.
I've used coconut oil instead of vegetable oil, and I've used honey instead of sugar, and both have worked well.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Lots of alternatives, and I have a feeling there are a lot of other experts probably on the call who can.
I'm not an expert, but
who are experienced challah bakers. So if I can just start before we kind of get into it, if you'll indulge me, because it's always nice, I think, to start with a word of Torah. So Tisha B'Av was yesterday, as everyone knows, I think, kind of the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. Tomorrow, the Parsha is about Et Hanan, which is like a big Torah portion that talks about, it's kind of a lot of the retelling. The Shema is in there, the Ve'ahavta is in there, the 10 Commandments are repeated in there. Moses finds out that he's not going to be entering the promised land. Joshua becomes the leader. And I don't know, I was thinking of, I don't know if any of you participated in a Tisha B'Av services Wednesday night or Thursday, but I don't know, it just felt so poignant to me this year in particular with everything going on in the world. The words, the Lamentations, the book of Eicha, it just had a different resonance for me this year. But it made me think also, and I've heard this before, it's so powerful, I think, about, for Jews at that time, the destruction of the temple was like the end of the world for them in a way. It was the end of everything. Because we were such a temple-based religion, bringing sacrifice to the temple in Jerusalem. But there were a small group of people led, I think by, and I'm sure if there are any experts on here, they can correct me, but I think I read it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, maybe, who said, yes, excuse me, we're going to still go on. We're still going to continue to be Jews. We're just going to have to adopt our practice because it's not going to be the same as it was when the temple existed. And basically they created Rabbinic Judaism, which brought a lot of the temple-centered ceremonies into the home. For example, challah is representative of the sacrifice. You may not know that, or maybe you do know that. Anyway, I guess the reason I just share that is I'm thinking this very sad day that it always strikes me, the melodies to Lamentations are so beautiful and the words are so incredibly painful and sad. And here we are, that was yesterday, today is today, tomorrow we have a beautiful Torah portion really with the essential parts of our tradition embedded in it that are always there regardless of this day. And I think Tisha B'Av is inspiring in terms of thinking about the reinvention that we do, that we come from that was such a sad, terrible day, and yet Rabbinic Judaism has sustained us for all of these thousands of years. The rabbis created something new. Well, what we're doing now, I don't know about you, but I really miss seeing people in person. I really miss my friends. I really miss our community. And I think I will miss this community once I know this community. But, and I think what we're trying to do at JCHS with this Challah Bake and everything else is come up with new ways to connect. And I would in no way compare what we're doing online with what the rabbis did to recreate Rabbinic Judaism. But I think we are just all trying our best to come up with something that is a difficult situation and adapt as best as we can to still have those core elements of what enable us to get to know one another and to bring each other closer, even though the medium right now has to be through the screen as opposed to in person. So God willing, that will happen. And I hope that today is just a taste of that as we get to know each other a bit through this. So thank you for indulging me with those few words.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is the question. And then we're going to go through talking about how to do the ingredients. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around. We can just do popcorn, and if not, I can call on you to just say your name, your connection to JCHS, and then the question I'd love people to think about is, first of all, let me say this. Anytime I've done a group challah bake, it always turns out amazing, the challahs. And I really believe that at some level, it's because we're all bringing our kavanah, our intention, our good ideas, our thoughts, our goodness to the process. And somehow, even if we're at a distance through the screen, it gets wrapped up in it and it's delicious. So just as we are adding our ingredients and our own thoughts, because you know, making challah is an auspicious time for prayers and communication to the divine or whatever, or meditative thought if you just want to think about things. I would love to know what aspect of your personality or personality trait do you uniquely bring to this challah that you want to add today to it? And how does that reflect on something you want to bring to our JCHS community? So, you know, what is something uniquely yours that you add to our challah today and to our community in general? So that's the question. You can think about it for a moment, and let me get us started with just the first step so the yeast can proof, and then we'll just go around. And I even have my first person here who's going to answer it, who's Joshua Miller, my son. Okay. Before we do anything, let's just take a cup of warm water, okay? Warm to hot, but not scalding, not too hot or it'll kill the yeast. We're gonna put in our separate bowl a cup of warm water, 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, and 1/3 cup of sugar, okay? In the small bowl.
How much sugar goes in the bowl now?
1/3 cup.
Oh, the whole thing. Okay, great.
The whole thing, yeah, because it triggers that reaction. And if you have a packet of yeast, it's 1 packet. If you use that, if you're measuring it out like this, you know, in a thing, it's 2 1/4 teaspoons.
And I assume if you're using any other sweetener like honey, it's the same.
Yeah, you know, this is a really good question. I don't know. You could try it. I've never done honey separately proofing, but try it. Why not?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
You
Please.
can use it, and then later you just might need a little more flour.
Okay.
Can you proof it separately with honey?
Sure, I think so. Sugar.
So
I have a question.
do you
It's
add the
like-
honey now instead of the sugar?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Well, you'll know in 5 minutes if it worked or not, and then you can always start again.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. You know,
If
the
I'm
other
gonna
thing you could do,
freeze
Jacqueline,
part of
I do know this, because I used to make it with honey too. You could always use very little white sugar in the proofing, like a teaspoon or a tablespoon, and then put the balance of your sweetener in when we do the dough with the liquid. I think that would be better.
Uh-oh. Too
So,
late.
all right, let us know what happens. Don't worry.
So, can I ask you, there are only 2 of us here and we're not gonna eat a whole big challah. So I'd like to freeze half of it. Should I put in more yeast?
No. You're gonna
No.
make 2 challahs with this, and you'll just freeze 1. They'll be smaller then. This recipe makes 2 challahs.
Can I freeze it raw and cook it later?
You know, I generally do not freeze my dough. I might freeze my challah. Some people do freeze their dough.
Yeah.
And I
I
thought
don't
if you,
want to jump in, someone who freezes their dough, but not the
We don't
regular.
know if this is going to work with honey.
I sometimes have dough that freezes. I don't like it. It never rises as much. You know, it ends up being short and heavier.
I heard that you're supposed to add more yeast if you're gonna freeze it. That's why I asked.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Unfortunately, I just don't know the answer.
Thanks.
I've tried it, but yeah, I think you don't get as good a pop on the yeast when you first put it into the oven if you've frozen it. So
Can I ask a question? Was it 1 cup or a 1/3 cup of sugar?
1/3 cup.
Thank you.
The recipe will work if you get the amounts wrong too, kind of. It's generous. I think I've mentioned before, I've made it without oil, I've made it without sugar, I've made it without salt, or I've made it with the wrong amount of sugar and salt. Anyway, it's very forgiving. It tastes better if you get the proportions right, but it does work. The other way does work. So Joshua, can you answer the question? We're gonna start with Joshua on.
I put everything in the chat if you need to reflect.
Right, so just to show you, I have a small bowl and everything's in here. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm just gonna leave it like this. I poured all the things in and hopefully it's gonna bubble up and foam up. You'll see in a few minutes.
So I think what I want to contribute to the challah is being kind, because I think especially now it's really important to be a little extra kindness goes a long way, and I think that's important also to bring to the JCHS community. And I'm Joshua, by the way, in case you need that.
Thank you. Joshua. Nothing like being able to recruit your children to help you with whatever you're doing. Okay, thank you. Who else would like to jump in with that? And feel free to elaborate on their thoughts. Yeah, Patty, is it, which one of you is it? I see 2 names on there.
Edie and Sadie.
Okay, great.
Sadie.
Remember to tell us your name and connection to JCHS.
Wait.
Who are you? What's your connection to JCHS?
I'm Sadie, and will be an 11th grader at JCHS. Yeah.
And we have a Sam who graduated, is at UCLA.
Okay.
Petey, sorry, the spelling is funky.
Yeah. Got it, no problem. I'll remember.
Thinking about what we bring to Shabbat, as we all celebrate it every week as a family, we bring our full passion and intention. And I think that's kind of what we bring when we're in a space anyway. We are completely present and commit to finding the joy in exactly where we are and what we're doing. And we share that, whether we're with friends, family, or just each other. And it's a lot, but it's nice to be around too.
And Petey, how do you do that? I'm curious, Petey and Sadie, how are you able to have the presence of mind to really put yourself in the moment somewhere and bring your full self to something?
So minimizing distractions, like no phones, no TV, really looking at one another, and we always talk about what we're grateful for, like Rose and Thorn that week. And, cross-talk about it. We share it back and forth, what we had that was really good and what we're appreciative of, what we're grateful for. So I think minimizing distractions is the first key. And then really saying, if you're in a space, if you're in a story, then if you don't make the most of that, and it's sort of wasted, then be somewhere else or don't commit. But when you commit, you get so much more from the experience, from the people, from the surroundings, if you really commit. And it feels really good. In this time of quarantine, we've been doing that every week, and we all feel as enthusiastic about it. So it's really been a really lovely experience being completely present and enthusiastic, not just like, oh, we're here, it's another one. Really, we're finding the joy in the things that we do as a team and family. Minimize the distractions and really focus on, sort of like if you know it's gonna rain every Wednesday and maybe you don't care for the rain that much, you can lament it, you can be in a bad mood, or you can find a way to really enjoy the rain. So that's kind of what we've done, and it feels really good. Thank you for letting us share this.
I love that. Sadie, did you want to add anything?
I think she said it all.
Well, I love that you shared that, and I love that you shared that so early on, because I think it really sets a wonderful intention for us even together today, because it's hard visually on the screen, virtually sometimes, to kind of bring that same presence that you would, we can look into each other's eyes, but it's a little harder when everyone is like a postage size stamp on your computer screen. So thank you for being so open and sharing that. Thank you. How about someone else? Lynn.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lynn. Hi, I have 2 kids. I have Levi, who's a senior at JCHS, and Simi, who's an incoming freshman. Simi's a boy, and neither of them are here, but anyway, I mean, they're here, but they're not baking challah. And let's see. So I think one of the things that we bring to JCHS is that we have a really unique family. We have 2 moms, and I'm religious, and my ex isn't. And so our kids are really, they get a really interesting viewpoint. And I have a friend who a long time ago had said about me that I can see both sides of both sides. And so I think that that's something I also bring to my baking, right? So if we talk about what we're going to imbue our challah with, I'm really flexible in the kitchen, and I'm going to bring kind of this ability to think about a lot of things at once, and a lot of love, and maybe holding contrasting opinions together in harmony, which I think is especially important right now. The world is in such a funny place, and learning how to hold my thoughts and your thoughts together, and talking about that with my kids, right? We talk about how to be, kind of how to be in the world where everything is so different. So when I bake, I love to, like as you were saying with the intention, like I love to knead in like brachot and different intentions as I make my challah. And I always try to say when I'm kneading my dough that everyone who should eat this dough should have joy from this dough, and everyone, they should have more love and more happiness. And I literally knead that into my dough because I do it by hand. And so I just think that that's the thing that we do in our family. We try to, respect each other's differences and bring that to the JCHS community. My kids are night and day. One's in theater, the other's going to be in sports. They're as different as they can be, and they respect each other. And we, so that's us.
It's beautiful. I love this. I wasn't sure how this question was going to work. Leslie had come up with an aspect of it, and I turned it into the ingredient one in the baking of the challah. And I just love so much the openness that people have shared with this, and what we are learning about what you want to put into this process, but also about you as individuals and you as families with your kids. Thank you so much. It's just beautiful. I already feel uplifted just hearing, the idea of like imbuing it, that you're thinking about the people eating your challah when you're kneading the dough and what you're putting into it. It's beautiful. Let's do one more, and then we'll kind of move on to the next step. The making the dough doesn't take that long, and then I'll show you some of the other steps too. Who else?
So I'll jump in.
Please, Leah.
I'm Leah, and my son, I had a son that graduated a year ago at JCHS, and he's now at the Air Force Academy. And I have a son that's going to be a junior. And it's really not what I bring, it's really what he brings and what he's taught us. His name is Ari. He's also in theater. He's also a musician. And Ari brings beauty to our world. And he, just with the incredible music he makes, and he's also an artist. He draws, and he's brought an aspect into our lives that's really special. He's not here right now. He's in Colorado for the summer working, but I soaked some saffron to make our challah really yellow and really rich. And while he's not here, even when he is here, we've been working on making beautiful meals. So lots of different colors. And this time of year, you can have all different colored fruits and veggies. And so that's what I hope that Ari brings to JCHS, and what he's brought to us. And that's what I'd like to put into our challah.
It's so beautiful. And I love how you continue to think about that, whether he's with you in the kitchen right now or in Colorado. As you say, he still is influencing what you're bringing to your meal tonight and how you're thinking about him. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's go to the next step and then we'll take the next person. It's pretty easy. So just put a third, now you have a big bowl. And in the big bowl, put a third cup of your oil, whatever oil you choose. I definitely think the coconut oil is fine, and people here have done that. So you just put it into the bowl. And why don't we do this at the same time? If you would like to put in vanilla extract, which I think just gives a bit of a depth of flavor, it's not sweet, you would just add 1 teaspoon of that now. So it's kind of dry with dry, liquid with liquid is kind of how you do it. So I'm going to do this with a ½ teaspoon. So that's almost, it's completely optional. Rebbetzin Leah Potash of Chabad of Noe Valley shared that secret with me, and I really like it. Your challah will be good without it too, but I think it's a nice flavor. So let's just leave that in there for a minute, and then why don't we go to someone else, and then we'll add the egg, and later we'll add the salt, and we'll go from there. So who else would like to jump in?
How much vanilla did you put? I missed that. I'm sorry.
I put in, 1 teaspoon. Who else would like to jump in and just share a little bit about what they would like to bring to the holiday? Lisa. Did I say it right?
It's Lissa, actually.
Lissa, sorry. Lissa. Thank
No
you.
problem. So I just typed in because this is sort of funny. So I have never made challah before, or maybe once helped braided with my best friend growing up. I'm Jewish. I was not raised religiously. My husband isn't. I have a 11th grader at JCHS and then 2 younger boys, all boys. I bring just being the newbie, I guess, in making the challah. And with it, as is typical, sort of a little bit of a lack of confidence. And funny enough, my yeast was very old, and I'm not sure that it did what it was supposed to do.
Why don't you show it to us?
Okay, well, I'll try. I don't know if you can.
I can't quite see the bowl. Is it bubbling up at all?
No, no bubbles.
Yeah.
So I think too old.
It might be. Do you have anything else to use?
No, but that's okay. I can still participate.
Okay. You can try it anyway. Why don't you try it?
I bring is just willingness to try and fail or succeed or learn from the experience and enjoy.
You'll bake with it. It might just not get puffy, but it'll still taste delicious.
That's what I think too. And thank you, Lissa, for being candid about being kind of the newbie. First of all, I think when you do something for the first time, you bring fresh eyes to it. Many of us who make challah all the time, aren't paying close enough attention maybe to all the different steps. I mean, I had to ask in my previous group, now exactly how long do we let it rise? Because you forget. So there's so much value in being the new person, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing with that. And I hope we can support you in the process. So even if it doesn't turn out today, we all know it's because of the old yeast, not because of anything, a lack of any skills on your part. And I would be happy to talk you through it any other time separately if it's something that interests you. So, Imbar.
Jackie, can you show us how? I'm wondering if my yeast is yeah. Move the bowl closer to you.
Can you see it's foamy? Oh, hold on.
So if I have little foam.
It's fine, the foam. You want to show me yours? It's good, I think. Yeah, that's what it ends up looking like, kind of. Yeah.
And you add the oil to it at this phase or later?
What did you say? Sorry?
The oil you add to the yeast?
No, we're not doing anything with the yeast yet. We're still leaving it separate. We just have the oil. I'll tell you what we're going to add next. We're going to take our room temperature egg. So I always break the egg separately for 2 reasons. One, for kashrut purposes, so there's no blood spot, right? Because if there's blood in the egg, it's not kosher, then you have to use a new one. The other thing, if you don't hold by that, but it just will, in case you get any eggshell, it'll break in your separate container and not in your challah. So I would suggest I'm now going to pour out this water and break the egg, and then I'm going to put my egg into the bowl with the oil and the vanilla. Okay, so everyone can do that now.
Jackie, I have a question.
Please. Yes, ask away. I hope I know the answer. I don't always.
All right, our coconut oil solidified. Is that an issue?
I do think that is an issue.
Should we like start over with a different oil?
I think so. You know, I think the coconut oil will work, but you really need the liquid for this piece.
Well, it started out as liquid because then we melted it, but then it solidified again. So I hear what you're hearing.
Does anyone else have the experience? Can you remelt the solidified coconut oil with the other things that are in there?
Well, too late.
Too late. Okay.
We'll use a different oil.
Okay, Jacqueline, I'm very curious to figure this piece out at some point with you, because I do think there are other ways to make this with healthier things. I just don't know, like with
right. Okay, I think we could have probably melted it.
You also can, just so you know, you can purchase. Again, I can't remember if it's refined or unrefined vegetable oil, coconut oil, and it comes, it's white, it's clear, it comes in a bottle like this. It does not solidify. That's what I've used in the past, and I think that would be better for the challah. Then you don't have to worry about that, but you have to have that separate ingredient. Okay, so you have your egg, you can put your egg in, and I kind of then start, you know, I break the yolk down and I just mix it up. So we just have all of these liquid things in here. If you were using honey, I would put honey in here now too, with the liquid. So it's the egg, the vanilla, and the oil. We're just gonna keep mixing it, and maybe someone else can go. We're just, one thing I'm not so good at. Can you see? Just kind of mixing it together. Just like that. It's not too much, you know. You're just breaking down the yolk so that it's, you know, not gloppy. It's just in one, it's like that. And then what we're gonna do, 1 second, I have a challah in the oven. I just wanna check it. I'm sorry, just 1 second. Thank you, sorry. I'll show it to you in a minute when it's done. Okay, who would like to go? And then we're gonna do our next combine things. And Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen.
And I'm Andrew.
And so Andrew's an incoming freshman, and kind of like Lissa, I bring a little bit of a novice perspective both to cooking and to sort of my Jewish identity.
We make sure to keep her out of the kitchen.
And so, so I think I'm just bringing like a real excitement to learn more about Judaism, meet a new group of people. So I have a lot of good intentions, not a lot of experience, but I'm definitely excited to get to know more and use this as a chance to get more connected with Andrew too.
So beautiful. To connect, to have the high school experience and opportunity a lot of times when I think our role of parents shifts slightly from what it was in elementary school, but to still think of how that connection is different perhaps, but still can be a close one in high school, and bring that desire of wanting to connect to our Challah Bake today. It's beautiful. It's nice to see you again too, Karen. I know you were at the last one, you and Andrew. So nice. I look forward to getting to know you more too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we go on, so your foamy yeast now that was in the separate bowl, let's add it to the big bowl. And just make sure that you scoop out, the sugar tends to settle at the bottom. It gets kind of filmy, so just make sure you get that all in the bowl. And then once you've done that, I have no place to put anything in our kitchen, okay. You can mix it up. The other ingredient that we're missing that I'm going to add now is salt. So before we start kneading the dough, before we start putting the flour in, 1.5 teaspoons of salt goes in. Okay, and then we can just kind of mix it with your spoon or your spatula. Who would like to jump in next? Don't be shy. Okay, Alexandra.
Yes, hi, I'm Alex.
Who are you with?
Oh, I'm with my mom, Linda.
Hello, Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Thanks.
So my eldest is entering freshman, and I have two boys. My second one is still in what grade? Seventh. Yeah, entering seventh grade. And yeah, they're both here, but not in the kitchen. What I bring to so I've been, the first time I did the challah was I don't know, a month or two ago when you had the first Challah Bake, and it was a disaster. My first one, I didn't have the right ingredients. Well, anyway, I couldn't find yeast at the time, so I had used something else. Well, anyway, it was not a huge success, but I was determined to make it work. And so I've been baking challah ever since. Every week I've been making my own challah, and so it's been really fun. I've been putting a lot of love in it, and at night seeing the happiness at the dinner table with home baked challah is really filling me up, because really everybody's happy to have fresh challah, and so we've been comparing week over week, which has been quite fun. And I have to say, when we actually follow your instructions and we have the right ingredients, it is pretty foolproof. I mean, it is pretty foolproof as a recipe. So we've been really enjoying it very much. The other thing we bring is, so I'm French, and well, I'm American now, but born in France. So, I bring my Frenchness. So I've been adjusting with the vanilla and the sugar because, our taste is a bit different. So anyway, that's kind of my story. And Mom and Dad are visiting from France. They were able to travel, and probably the only ones from Europe wanting to come to the US in this time. So they just arrived last week. So it's really a blessing to be all together.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Hello and
yeah,
welcome. Do they want to add anything, your mom or your dad? They're welcome to say something.
Everything my daughter said is the truth, and I'm very happy to be doing the It's my first one.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. Well, you sound like you have an expert baker at home now. I would say that.
Yeah.
That Alex is bringing is obviously persistent.
Yes. I don't give up. Not easily, anyways. This is my dad.
It's wonderful. We have some students here, but we don't have so many parents, and it's how wonderful it is to see you as the child, Alex, with your parents.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Nice. Oh, it's wonderful. It's so wonderful. So you're bringing a different sense of family today to the challah as well, because your parents are here. How wonderful that is.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And
thank you.
I hope as we all get to know each other, you'll share more of those special things that you bring with your unique background and experience. I would also love to know at some point the different tastes that are more French than American, with sugar and all of those different things. I'm really curious.
You can summarize it as less sugar.
Less sugar. Okay.
That summarizes it pretty well, I think.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me just say before we go on, so we've mixed everything now in our liquid ingredients. We have the oil, the vanilla if you want it, the egg, and the salt, and the yeast mixture. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly, I make this by hand too every week, which is one of the reasons I like this recipe. You don't need an electric beater. You certainly don't need a KitchenAid, and you also don't need an electric beater. We're gonna use about 4 cups of flour, but so first of all, if you wear rings and you don't like to get flour underneath your rings, this is the time to take off your jewelry. I take off one ring always, it bugs me, but the rings that I always leave on, I just keep on, but just so you know, that's the time. The very important part here is that we're going to only add 1 cup of flour at a time. So you're going to add a cup and wait. We're going to also ask more people to share during this time. But if you're like the people like my teacher in some context, Rachel Brody, doesn't like when people read ahead when they give the handout. I'm sure there'll be those of you who are going to put the flour in without me telling you to go do it. Do not put in the full 4 cups. If you end up having to go ahead, put in 3, but don't put in the 4th, because you're going to have to feel out how much. You can always add more flour, but you cannot take more flour back out. Okay, so again, it's not going to be a disaster if you put in your 4 cups, but I would suggest that you don't put in more than 3 and you do it 1 at a time. So let's put in our first cup of flour. And I usually, after I can do 3 cups, I'm able to do 3 cups with my wooden spoon or spatula. The 4th cup, then I put my hands in. That's my suggestion. That's kind of what works. So who would like to share as we start putting in our flour? Who has not gone yet? I see a lot of people haven't gone. Julie Lewis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Lewis, and I have a rising senior. I have an 8th grader and a 3rd grader. Kind of crazy. And what I'm bringing today to my challah is patience. I feel like I have a lot of patience. That's one of my strong suits, I guess, but I'm feeling like I'm needing more patience these days. Patience with myself, patience with my family, patience with the world, and I don't feel like I need patience with JCHS. I have a lot of full faith and trust in JCHS, but just patience with, you know, how school will start, having 2 schools, having a younger child in school. So that's what I'm bringing today.
Oh, I love that. It's interesting. Yeah, patience with everything going on is, I bet we can all totally relate with that. And I think there's also patience in the baking process, like when we're waiting for the yeast to proof, or we're waiting, you know, there are different moments where you just can't rush along. And sometimes, like Jacqueline did, you have to toss it and start over again. But yes, patience. That's a wonderful quality. And I know you have a lot of it, Julie. Thank you for sharing that. I'm missing your expert baker today, Ruby.
I know, me too. She's very sad to not be here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Okay, who would like to go? I'm still doing the 3 cups. Who has not gone, who would love to share? Jacqueline?
I'm happy, sure.
Yeah.
So I have a son who's a rising senior, like a couple other of you. And I have a daughter who graduated from college. She went to JCHS, who graduated from college a year ago. So I've got everybody home with me. So I've been at the school for many years, and have been involved in many different levels. What I'm bringing to my challah today are 2 things. One is gratitude. Just gratitude for this community, gratitude for our health, gratitude for where we live, considering all the other places in the world. We're here in beautiful, the Bay Area, and I'm feeling very, very lucky about that. And I'm also bringing acceptance for the things that I cannot control, or that I cannot change, or that I have challenges with. And I am kneading all of that into my dough today. And thank you, Jackie, for doing this. I'm loving it. I hope we could do more things like this.
Yes.
Because it feels really good to connect with you all.
Thank you. I feel the same. And I think when you just said gratitude, I bet a number of us were thinking that as well. It really does go to show you that if people are willing to be open and take a moment to share, you can have connection, even if it's on the screen, you know? So thank you for sharing that, Jacqueline, both in terms of the acceptance piece, which I imagine many of us are wrestling with in so many different ways, whether it's with our own, something in our own lives, or for our children right now, as well as the gratitude. And I was just thinking, listening to each of you as we're getting to know each other a little better, and really so many people on the call are new, for me, how grateful I am to be part of a community that fosters this kind of connection. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so let me just take us to the next step. So my dough, it's kind of become a dough. I'm curious about Lissa, what's going on with you with the yeast, if you're still getting this. How's it going, Lissa? Oh, let's see, you're on mute, but you can show us. Oh, look, looks great. Okay. It might not be as big, but I think you should try it for sure. Okay, so it's going to be pretty sticky. And so my suggestion is, it looks like most people on this call have made challah before, so you probably don't need my specific instructions, but as you know, it can be different depending on the weather and all kinds of other things. So I usually just have a full 4th cup ready to go. And then I just put my hands in the dough, and I just sprinkle in a little bit at a time. I have to stand up to knead my dough. I just put some in, and then I don't know if you can see what can you see the bowl? I just scoop it up underneath and down like that. That's how I kind of knead it, like that. And you can feel it, like if it's too sticky and squishy, it sticks to your hands too much. And then you have to add some more. I rarely add the full 4th cup, but you know, it really depends where you are. It's warmer in Marin than it is in San Francisco. You know, it's not as damp out. You definitely could end up with the 4 cups, but you just keep adding it. And then I use my, you know, I don't know, I'm sure there are other really good bakers on this call, or challah bakers, who might have something they'd like to share. Does anyone have any tips with the kneading piece? How you add, and how you know when the dough can't take anymore? I know Leslie is a regular challah baker. Could you chime in, Leslie?
I'm just constantly adding a little more flour until it's not sticky.
Until it's not sticky.
There's no magic number, really.
I have a friend who said to me, you want to make sure your bowl is clean. So I still have too much at the bottom of my bowl. Like, I'm going to be able to absorb that into the dough. If I think for some reason I've added too much flour, and the reason I've had this experience where I've had too much flour, it's harder for the dough to stick together when you braid it later, when it gets too dry. But if I'm having that feeling, I will like squish it through my fingers like this a few times. I mean, this isn't for more than 4 cups of flour, but if I think and it makes it all sticky again, and then I can add some more. So who would like to, while we continue to do this, who else would like to jump in that hasn't? And by the way, you don't have to join. I hope you'll at least tell us your name and your connection to JCHS, but if you'd rather pass on the question, or you're just not comfortable, that's completely fine as well. So who else, who has not gone yet, who might like to share?
We're happy to talk.
Okay, Imbar, nice to see you again.
So nice to see you. Thank you for doing this, Jackie. This is so sweet. And I will say, last time I didn't make challah because I didn't have all the ingredients, and this time I said, okay, I'll make it. I'm going to join because it's so nice, not because I want to make a challah, because we're in our family, we're now talking about maybe going gluten-free, so that's a problem. But this was so nice last time, so thank you, Jackie. And I'm hoping to experience more events like this, not necessarily baking challahs, to connect with people. And it's nice to see some familiar faces and some more newly familiar faces from these Zoom calls. So I'm in Bar, and my daughter Tamara is going to start at JCHS this coming year. She's not here, she's dancing. It's her last day of her dance program of 4 weeks, and that's what she does in life. I also have Maya here with me, which now she left, and Maya is happy to see Sadie. Sadie, can you say hi? So Maya and Sadie were, when Sadie was in 8th grade at Brandeis Marin, Maya was in kindergarten, and they were buddies. So this is a sweet opportunity to reconnect. What I'm bringing today, number one, is hope, and yeah, I'm very curious to see how things unfold with COVID, but not bad. And being part of JCHS is like, I'm curious and hopeful that this would be a new phase of our life as a family, because Tamara is our oldest of 3. And here, as part of the hope, I will show you that I now discovered, like you, Lisa, that one of my yeast packages is too old, and I started a second batch. So see, this is filling me with hope. The other thing I'm bringing is I'm a mix of cultures and heritage. I grew up in Israel, but I grew up very secular, and I am half Iraqi Jew and half Ashkenazi, but my Ashkenazi side is a kibbutznik side, so there was no cooking in my kibbutznik grandmother's kitchen. So I have a lot of like these different things that in recent years, as I'm living the more Jewish life in California, I am exploring and reconnecting to the different parts of my heritage. And I'm happy to bring this to JCHS and find people to explore it with.
Barb, thank you for saying that. On so many fronts. First of all, thank you for trying to do the challah again. And though your family might be going gluten-free, thank you for doing that. And thank you for sharing your background and that you bring that to JCHS. One of the things that we have talking about, and believe me, I will just say this with all humility as both an incoming parent and somehow one of the 3 PA chairs, is that one of the things we want to do is bring more diversity in terms of background and culture and experience to some programming. So I wonder sometime if we might be able to speak offline about some ideas, because even different communities make challah differently. You know, it's not all the same, and we have such.
Or don't make challah. So here, just one point for you. It's like I did not grow up with. Well, I guess my parents bought challah in the store in Israel every week, but it wasn't as exciting as this, as you know, with everything that we put into it. But my mom baked a cake, at least one cake every Friday. So
that was your truth. Yeah. So it would be wonderful to explore something like that. I know for those of you who aren't into cooking and baking, it might not be the same, but maybe we can talk about presenting menus with different customs and traditions throughout the world and see what people bring to the table. Be really, really interesting, I think.
What kind of cake did she make?
Oh, all kinds of different cakes. My mom was a great cake baker. And her mom was a baker. Interestingly, my kibbutznik grandmother, who never cooked, it's like she immigrated to Palestine when she was 15 and was in a kibbutz for the rest of her life. So she never cooked, but she always baked. It was a very German thing to have the afternoon.
Cafe and Kuchen. It's
Yes.
called Cafe and Kuchen because
yes, in front of their small kibbutz apartment, there was always homemade baked goods in my grandmother's kibbutz apartment, and my mom always baked a lot of great cakes. And I feel like I'm somewhere in between making the challah like we're doing now, and thinking, oh, but I love that heritage of my mom, that every week we're like, oh, what cake is she making this time?
Yeah, I'd like to be at the Shabbat table with a different homemade cake every week. It sounds good to me too. Can only manage this piece. Okay, so let me just share this. Thank you, Imbar. Thank you for the 2 of you for sharing. And bye, Alex. We were glad you were on. I know you had to go. So let me just tell you what we're going to do to finish up. So the dough should be pretty much done for you, I think. I cover it with a press and seal. I just leave it in the bowl. My bowl is clean. I just cover it with, saran or whatever this is. And I'm gonna let it rise a few hours, at least an hour. It should double in size. I'll show you what it's gonna look like a little bit here. let me just tell you how we're going to finish up. It's at 11, and I think this is till 11:30 if you have to go. Totally understand. But what I want to show you is, this is what we're going to finish with is, I'm going to show you how to make a stuffed challah. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And then whenever I am involved with the Challah Bake, I like us at the end to just spend a few minutes to do a Misha Berach, where we can think of people who are ill or who in need of healing, and we can just say their names, you know, and wrap those good intentions for them into our challah as well. But we'll do that at the end. So first, I want to know if anyone, we're still sharing, but I want to know, does anyone have any questions as they're finishing kneading their dough and putting it into their bowl to let it rise?
Jackie, could you check on Lissa's dough? She might need a little more flour.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
I think you checked, Leslie, and I think you're right. Yeah. Are your hands still really sticky, Lissa? Yeah. More flour. Don't touch the computer. We know. No, it's okay.
Unmute you. Sorry.
Question: is there such a thing as too much kneading? And then,
you know, it's a good question. Some people say yes. I have heard that, but I don't know exactly what too much is. Like, I do maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes. I don't even do that much. I know you can go like, I would say anything over 10 is too much for sure. Anyone else have an opinion on that? How much is too much kneading on the dough?
I think, like, if you're hand kneading, it's almost impossible to do too much kneading. Like if you were doing it with a machine, it might be possible, but by hand, probably not.
Thanks,
I've also read later, like when, and maybe you'll talk about this, sorry, but when you're braiding, if it gets, like starts to shrink up, just to let it sit for a little bit, and that rests the gluten, and then you're able to braid it and use it a little easier. Does that ring true for you ever? Where like you're rolling out.
You were freezing a little bit. What did you say? Can you repeat
I was
that?
just saying, when you're rolling out later, sometimes they'll shrink up. And so I've been told to just let it rest after you roll out your 3, and then that rests the gluten.
Okay, great.
Does that come from kneading it too much prior, or why does that happen?
I don't know. That always happens to me too, where they shrink up. They just do that. I don't know.
Just let it rest, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have 2 questions. So first off, actually, I'm using a gluten-free flour from Italy that my sister-in-law sent me, that she's used and supposedly works with most things. So in light of that, I don't know if this still looks too sticky to you guys and I need more flour or not. I've done a little bit over 4 cups.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know on the gluten-free. You know, my understanding is the times that I've been involved where people have done gluten-free, they put them in a mold actually, because it tends to be more liquidy, I think, and not as dry. So they had a whole mold. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I'm very curious. I hope you'll let us know how it turns out. It looks good.
It doesn't really feel sticky anymore. I think that last bit was it.
I think it looks great.
I think it looks great too. So everyone just put it in your bowl and then, you know, cover it up. I would just leave it, leave it out somewhere for a while. The one I made, so I think you heard that I did a bake at between 9 and 10. So I don't know if you can see already how much my dough has risen just like in an hour or so. It's just from this morning, 1 hour before us. And then what you do is, this is a dough that I made last night because I'm going to show you how to punch it out. I let it rise once because I put 1 challah in the oven that I'm going to show you, but it's not really, when I mean punch it later, you're going to punch it like that, and it's going to go like the air goes out of a balloon. And I'm going to use this now to show you how to stuff a challah. I will show you, okay, let me just share this briefly on kind of nuts and bolts. So I just, over these few weeks, just felt like I got to bring, raise up my challah game. So I thought, what can I put in it? Maybe I'll try that. I often make it with chocolate chips. If I make it with chocolate chips, I usually just put it in the dough now and let it rise like that. But if you really want to stuff it with things, you have to do it a little bit differently. So in the past, I've been very successful with chopping up sun-dried tomatoes, grilled onions, and Kalamata olives. And the process is the same. I just didn't do that one today, but that one has been very successful. I've also done it stuffing it with chocolate chips instead of putting it in the dough. It's not worth the extra time, I think, on that. But a few weeks ago, I tried a new one that I thought you guys might like too, or you might like too, which is cut up apples and cinnamon, which is also, my kids loved it. And it's also nice thinking about Rosh Hashanah coming up, because it's very easy to turn these into round challahs. So I thought I'd show you how to do that. And I haven't forgotten that some people haven't shared, and we're still going to get to you. Just want you to know. Let me show you. This is my finished apple and honey challah. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, my hands are a little dirty. Can you see it? There's little pieces of apple on top. You can't really tell, but I just wanted to show you, just like on the Food Network, you know, what the finished product looks like. So let me just put that there. And so now I'd love people to share. Well, I'm just going to get set up. The other thing I bought recently, sorry, I'm looking for some ingredients. Oh, my one child thinks that I'm like a walking advertisement for these, but I'm just going to mention them again. When I bake the challah, I really like to put it on parchment. I love these pre-cut cookie baking sheets, okay? I'm not getting anything from Reynolds, but I just find them. I used to measure and cut them, and it saves a lot of time. So that's always good when you put the egg wash on. The other thing I got, the Sur La Table in our neighborhood is closing, and I never thought I'd be into this, but this is a pastry cloth. And I really like, Lynn, it looks like you're shaking your head. I really like, in agreement, I like rolling out my dough on it. I have a vinyl tablecloth, and it always sticks. And this is much better. So I am now going to show you how to do this on this. So, but I love someone else. You can watch me do it. I'm basically going to roll out the dough. I'm going to take divide it into 3. This is if you want to stuff it only. And then I'm going to roll out each section and stuff it with the apple that I prepared in advance. But I'd love for someone else who hasn't had a chance to share. Let me see who has not shared, who might want to. Leslie, Yael, let me see, Mary Ellen, who else?
I'm happy to share.
Yael, okay, why don't you share? And I'm just, if people have questions, they could just, I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'll show you in a minute.
Okay, so I apologize for the noise in the background. My kitchen is under construction right now. So I made my challah dough last night. So I make challah every week, and I have to make it when the construction's not happening. So it is currently rising. And I have a rising sophomore at JCHS. She came mid-year last year. So she only had a couple of months of in-person school before we went to distance learning, but she's been really loving it. And we're really excited to be a part of the JCHS community. And I wanted to join today to meet other parents and, sorry about the noise, and get to know people. The thing I love about making challah every Friday and having Shabbat dinner as a family is the connection. And I just think of the symbolism of when we say the challah blessing, of everyone touching the challah or touching someone who's touching the challah. And so I bring that, just wanting to connect, and that challah and Shabbat is a way to connect. And I'm so grateful for this Zoom session to get to connect with new people. So thank you.
Thank you, Yael. I was going to say, have you, sorry, I'm way under, sorry, let me fix this. I'm way under here. Have you seen what our kids do something? It's really cute sometimes at the end of their Zooms. What do they do with their hands? Like they're connecting. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? They're like giving each other a hug or a connection in their Zoom box. Has anyone seen this? No, no one knows what I'm talking about. Anyway.
It's like a hand connection. So like you put your hands up against the sides of the box so that it looks like
right. How do you do that exactly? I'm not quite sure how to do that, but I thought we could do that before we get off, because it's like we're connecting too. So I love that. I love that. Yael, thank you for sharing. It's just a beautiful, yeah, the connection. We all miss the physical connection too, for sure. But we have that on Shabbat, yeah. Thank you. What was your daughter's name again, Yael?
My daughter is Gabby.
Gabby.
She's entering 10th grade, yeah. And I have 3 other kids in public school.
Okay, who are older or younger?
7th through 12th grade. So 7th grader, 9th grader, and 12th grader.
Okay, wow, okay. And a kitchen under construction, very busy.
It's pretty crazy over here.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Who would like to go next? Who hasn't had a chance? Or I might call on you. Mary Ellen.
I have to find my unmute button. So thanks so much. It's so good to see everybody. It really is. It kind of makes me like kind of teary to look at everyone and feel like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen people in so long. So I'm Mary Ellen Hunt. I was the director of admissions. Leslie Tickton has kindly risen to the challenge, and she is director of admissions now. I'm taking over as enrollment manager, which is a new position, but kind of a little bit more, big picture. So I'm still doing all kinds of stuff with marketing, admissions, because I really love, I love working in all of those areas, introducing people to JCHS. I've been at JCHS for so long. I've been there since 2003 in so many different capacities. And it's a really special community, and I love bringing that to people. So I'm not Jewish, as many of you know, but I love baking. And I actually do like making challah bread. It's a favorite in our household. So what do I put in the challah? I actually have never had that kind of intentionality with challah before. And I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been listening to everybody talk. And I think I always feel like my superpower is the ability, I love to plan things, and I love to have lots and lots of plans of how things are going to work out. And then those plans get blown up, and I love to figure out how to make it happen anyway. So I feel like in baking, that's very typical for me. I start with the recipe and I think I've got it all down, and then something gets blown up. And so I think putting in the ability to make something work, make something happen, and still appreciate it, bring it all together somehow, and feel like it's all still good. Everything is fine. It's all going to work out. So
all going to work out. Well, thank you, Mary Ellen. It sounds to me, again, what I hear with that also is a resilience. Like, even if it doesn't work like you plan it, you work around and figure out how to make it work, just like we're all doing in so many ways. And I appreciate your openness and sharing that you're not Jewish. And I think you're totally welcome to participate, and you bring something else and a different intention and perspective, or just the fact you've not thought about that before, and you're bringing that. I mean, there are many of us who don't think, sometimes unless we pause and stop and really give ourselves that moment, like I think Petey said in the beginning, to really be present, we're also not thinking about those things. So thank you for sharing that, and then having the opportunity to really do that. So, and we're so glad that you're still around, even if it's in a bit of a different capacity, because so many of us know you through the admissions, of course. So.
Yeah, no, I not being Jewish, sometimes I feel like, oh, well, how did I wind up in this position? But this community has embraced me from the very first second that I walked in the door. And it's always felt that way. So I've never felt like I was not part of this community. And that's been really special.
Yeah, thank you. Who else? Karen, did you want to at least introduce yourself?
Okay, I just unmuted myself. I'm Karen Fradkin, and my son Kyle Fradkin is starting 9th grade, and we are excited. And I have not baked challah, but I like to sit in. I get a lot of tips of both baking and life. And what other question was I supposed to answer?
Well, just if you were making the challah, or even if not, what part of you do you want to bring to JCHS or to the challah?
I would say voices, because when we come to the table, we use our voices to talk and communicate, and we bring forth insight to maybe something that we don't know. So I would say voices.
Voices. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Karen, for being those voices, and also, participating and not making challah, which is still great to always have you be part of it, because it's great if you make it, but if not, it's still a wonderful chance for us to be together. So Thank you for sharing that. I want to just tell people what I'm doing, and then I think Leslie, if she still hasn't had a chance to go, and then I'll finish up, and I'll be the last one on that, and then we'll say the Misha Berach, and then answer any questions and go like that. So let me just share what I'm doing. So I don't know if you saw, I rolled it out with a rolling pin. If I'm not stuffing it, I don't use a rolling pin. And then I've cut up my apple really small. I've put it in the center of each braid. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll it over and kind of just close it. It's a little bit fragile and it might open up again, but I'm just going to pinch it closed with whatever you put on the inside. The sun-dried tomatoes, for example, are a little trickier because they're in oil and it gets just a little messy. Don't do that on your pastry cloth, I think. Just do that on your tablecloth. But it should pretty much stay shut. And then I'm going to braid like I normally would, but these are stuffed now. And they may come out in part, you know, they might, some of the filling might escape, but it's pretty. And so, actually, this is pretty good dough. So, Leslie, if you want, you can talk while I do this. I'm just showing people. See, they're already opening up a little bit, but it's okay. I'm just going to close it, and then I'm just carefully going to braid it, and I'll just show you a trick. I always try to braid it very tight if I can. Actually, I got a great tip last week. I don't know if any of you ever, it was the first time I ever joined in Tiffany Schlein's Challah Bake. And she had on this guy from Berlin who calls himself the Challah Prince of Berlin. Wow, he was great. Anyway, he usually rolls out his braids so they're bigger in the middle and thinner on the ends. And he said it gives the challah a better shape. I did not just do that, but that was a great tip. But if you can see what I did, and then at the end, I just go like that. I put it underneath. And can you see? That's my dough.
Jackie?
Yes.
Did you use did you use a half recipe right now or a whole recipe to make that dough?
Yeah,
like
good
that
question.
Did you braid a whole recipe or a half recipe?
This is half because the challah I showed you that was done, that was the other half.
Okay,
Thank you. Good question. You can make, I've never made one big challah with this recipe, but you can for sure. I always make two. So this here, let's see. Now I can do it better. This is the done one in the half size.
I have a question.
It had so much time to rise, okay? And normally I would have given it more time. It would have gotten a little bit bigger.
Jackie, I have a question, or for any of you. One thing, and I've been baking challah for many years, but I don't really know how to make dough in advance. I've never done it and frozen it, and I don't know. Can you like explain how that works and what's effective and not effective?
I was asking this earlier. I never do that. So does anyone here make challah where they freeze their dough and use it later? Sorry, Jacqueline.
So when you made the dough, someone on the call, I don't remember, said they made the dough last night?
Yeah, I made mine last night. So did Yael, yeah.
And so what did you do with it overnight?
Yael, what did you do with it overnight?
So I put mine in the fridge. I make it Thursday night sometimes and I leave it in the fridge and then I take it out to rise the next morning. But I've done all different kinds of things. Sometimes I leave it in the fridge for a long time so that it rises slowly in the fridge. And then I take it out and braid it cold, which is sometimes easier for rolling and braiding, and then leave it out to rise for a long time braided.
Lynn.
Yeah, when you do that, how long does it take your braided dough to rise? Like I find it takes 5 hours when that happens.
Yeah, it can take a long time. It can take a long time. But one thing I learned, I have also been joining the Tiffany Schlein Zoom Challah Bakes and have gotten wonderful tips and thought that Berlin braider was amazing. And I've been reading different challah tips. And one of the things I have seen about is actually doing your egg wash after you braid it and letting it rise with the egg wash on it, and then egg washing it again before baking it. So I've done that as well. But yeah, I leave it out to rise sometimes for several hours in the braid.
Yeah.
You do that egg wash trick just when you've had the refrigerator, or you do that egg wash trick every time you braid your challah now?
Now I do it every time I braid my challah. Yeah.
It definitely gets more golden, I think. I usually do not do that, but I did it a couple of weeks ago with the 2 times. Probably after that. We heard that, yeah. I like 1 time. Actually, I should share with everyone that you do need, once your dough has risen, you've punched it down, you've maybe let it rise a second time. Usually the first rise is the bigger rise, longer rise. You want to braid it. I tend to let it rise without the egg wash. There's no right or wrong here. I think you could do it either way. The egg wash, I learned this tip from someone else. I just use egg yolk. I don't use egg white, and I put a little bit of sugar in with it, and then I brush it right before I put it in the oven. So there is just one more step in terms of that if you want to have a golden brown. And I like to put sprinkles. That's popular in our family, sprinkles. So, but I want to have Leslie have a chance to share, and then I want to be respectful of people's time, so we'll do the Misha there off and then wrap it
Can
up.
I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
Before Leslie, just
Yes.
do you ever put oil on the dough before letting it rise, or do you just cover it with the plastic?
So I have learned this shortcut. What I used to do was I took the dough out, the ball, I completely washed and dried the bowl, then I sprayed it with cooking spray or olive oil in the bowl, and then I let it rise. And then I had a friend tell me, you know, I never do that, and it turns out great. So I thought, okay. So I don't do it now because it was just like one more step, but I used to do that. And
But what about the top?
I don't put any oil on. Does anyone else add oil to it? Lynn.
I do. I spray the bowl. I spray the bowl and then put the ball of dough and sort of roll it around in the spray so that all sides of the ball of dough are covered with the cooking spray, and then let it rise like that.
What difference do you think it makes, those who do that?
Well, you don't get that crust on top. Like sometimes it can dry out and the top of your dough can get kind of firmer than the interior.
Got it.
So that's why I do that also. Although I will say about that, to be careful you don't add too much oil, because I've also like put a bunch of oil in the bowl and thought, oh, no big deal. And then my dough winds up more like focaccia.
Okay. Good tip.
Whoops.
Okay, where's Leslie? There. Leslie, can you share with us?
So much to learn from everybody. This is
I know.
Like Yael, I apologize. We're having our couch steamed right now. And so I've moved from the dining room to the kitchen, but I'm afraid if I go down to our downstairs office, I'll lose Wi-Fi, and then I'll lose the whole Zoom. So I'm in my kitchen now. I'm Leslie Tickton, and as Mary Ellen mentioned, as of July 1, I am the Director of Admissions at JCHS. Super excited. And thank you. And I may be calling on all of you to be parent ambassadors. So thank you in advance for helping us to promote our school to those who want to learn about it. My husband Stephen and I have 3 kids. Jared is starting his 4th year at Indiana University. Chloe graduated from JCHS last year, and she's headed back to University of Oregon in a couple months. And our youngest, Ethan, is about to start his senior year. And we also have 4 nieces and nephews who are JCHS alum. And I love baking challah. It's been my quarantine therapy. I'd never baked it before by myself. I've done challah bakes with Jackie and through our temple and things before with groups and with groups of women, but I'd never done it solo. And I started doing baking every Friday in April, and it's just, I literally look forward to my Fridays to be able to bake and share challah with my family. And so many of you shared such great things that you're adding to our challah and to our community. I know I was taught by Rabbi Ruth Abel-Schmegder years ago and I love this tradition. I always break off a little piece of dough before it starts to rise. And in my fingers, I say a little blessing, and kind of like Misha Beirach, but just, not just for people who are sick or are ailing, but also just for all our family and friends in our lives. And I just say a little blessing. So I bring that with me into my challah, and I share that with you. And when I'm doing that next, I will definitely bring all of you with me. And I love the connection, bringing connections to our community, and hopefully we'll continue to do that in many different ways, hopefully in person sooner than later, but definitely in situations like this where we can connect with one another and learn from each other. So thank you so much, Jackie, for bringing us together, and I wish all of you a Shabbat Shalom and health and happiness and peace.
Thank you, Leslie. I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for everything you bring to this community. You certainly embody all of the things I think that you shared with us yourself, for sure. And it's beautiful what you shared. You know, it is traditional to take a piece of the challah and burn it. But we've discussed this before. It has to do with, if you're more observant, it has to do with the amount of flour you're using, and we're not using that amount of flour. So, but it goes to show you that you can do that anyway. It's kind of the burnt offering, and it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing and for keeping us in mind. I will quickly just wrap it up, introduce myself more fully, and maybe we can say a Misha Berach for everyone, and then that's it. So I'm Jackie Shelton Miller. My husband Craig and I have 3 boys. The oldest, Aaron, is going to be a senior at Bay. Joshua is an incoming freshman at JCHS. And our youngest, Ilan, goes to Northbridge Academy and is in the 5th grade in Mill Valley. And I already forgot, oh yes, what I'm bringing to the challah. I think what I'm bringing is, well, there's so many things I want to bring, but I'll say authenticity. I guess I just bring my full self into everything that I do, and it's just what you see is what you get. That's who I am. So, and I'm happy to add that, and hope to create authentic and deep connections with each of you, with us as a community and individually, because I feel like those are the really meaningful connections that help carry me through the day and through our lives. So thank you for all being so open and your time this morning. I hope your challahs are going to be delicious. Remember what I said. I think even with the old yeast, even with the experimenting with the different oils, I feel like whatever we create will be beautiful tonight because we did this together, and I think that we'll feel that. So I certainly welcome, and I know any of us would welcome any future ideas for future get-togethers, things you might like to talk about, or ways for us to connect, whether it might be doing an activity together. I think doing something hands-on is always really fun, and then having the chance to talk while doing that. But of course, we can also just talk if they're particular topics. So please feel free to let me know, or Leslie, or Mary Ellen, or anyone else that you'd like to share. I also want to share with you I do this every Friday. Right now, we're doing it between 9 and 10 a.m. Karen joined our group through the last Challah Bake that I did with JCHS. Julia's on the call, has been on the call before. I would just like to welcome any of you. If you are interested in making another challah and meeting a few other women who are meeting regularly Fridays from 9 to 10, just send me the info and I'd be happy to include you on the list. It's very similar format. It's just 1 hour. And it's been really a real anchor for a lot of us during this time. So I want to say thank you. And before we hang up, if we could I'd love for us to go around, think of people, if there are groups of people or individuals that you might have in mind to share who are in need of healing, body, mind, spirit, that we can just keep all of those people in mind in this process. So if anyone would like, no obligation, but if you'd like to jump in, please just feel free to unmute and share those names as we keep them in mind for healing this week.
Thank you. I'll start. My dad was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's and going through some testing, so I just want to send him some extra strength. And my aunt has also been in the hospital recently just with an infection, not with COVID. But and she's alone, so I just want to say a little extra prayer of strength for her as well.
Leslie, will you say their names? Will you say their names? Yeah.
Yes, Jackie Rothman and Dave Berman. Thank you.
Who else? Just feel free to unmute and jump in.
This is Leah. My sister Danita Siemens, and my sister Brenda Gierzak, and my mother-in-law Eleanor Goldberg.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add my aunt, Marcia Moyer, who's really in the last weeks of her life, and our very close JCHS friend, Linda Zaleski, who's healing from very severe back surgery and is doing well.
We lost my father in May from cancer. So my whole family, as we try to go on.
What was his name, Lisa?
Irving Bernstein.
You know, maybe we can also just especially dedicate our Challah Bake today in his memory, if that's okay with you in particular. Of course, all the people we're praying for, but why don't we keep him in mind in particular and your family? Thank you for sharing that.
I want to, you know, we're part of the extended community with the Schweigs. Tanya's the head of school at OHDS where both my kids went, and we go to Beth Jacob, and we have a lot of crossover with Beth Israel. And I really just want for them to have comfort in the face of this immense tragedy of losing their son. We are still reeling from this. And so I just can't imagine how hard their Shabbases have been. And yesterday, especially on Tish B'Av, and thinking about suffering. And I just hope that the work that we do, I'd also like to dedicate this to the memory of Yoni. We've been doing a lot of things right now in his memory, and that just that anything we do to create a little extra light in the world can make some lightness for the Schweig family.
Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. Let's definitely keep his family and him in mind and doing mitzvot in that way. Thank you. Imbar, did you want to add? No. Anyone else? Okay, I'm just going to add my little list, my in-laws who are really housebound in Los Angeles. My father-in-law, Abraham Ben Chana, my mother-in-law, Chaya Fega Bat Charnia, and then friends from the shul, Melech Shalom Ben Sarah, Avner Ben Naomi, a friend in Washington, Shoshana Bat Galia, Devorah Bat Chana, Chava Bat Leah, Miriam Bat Leah, Kate Shali, Fran Shali, Susanna Weening, Sophia Bat Gilda, and all those who are in need of healing and support, whatever way it might be. People in our world, grateful for the people who are doing the things that we're not right now to keep us going, and healing and blessing and a cure and a treatment for all of these things, and just relief from some of the pain and suffering, and more light and joy in the world. And just say amen. So thank you. I feel, I'm always amazed at how connected I can feel with people, even over the computer. But I really feel like we shared something special this morning. Maybe that's just me, but that was my feeling. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for bringing yourself so fully to the space and being so open. I can't wait till we have the chance to meet in person. And in the meantime, I hope we'll have many opportunities to meet again like this. I really look forward to it. It's so obvious to me what a special community JCHS is, and I feel grateful now that our family is going to be a part of it. So thank you all. I wish you all a wonderful Shabbat Shalom. I hope your challahs are delicious. If you have any questions in any way, you want a personal tutorial, you want to join my other challah group, or you just want to connect, I hope you'll reach out. Leslie can share my info if you don't already have it. So thank you, and wishing you Shabbat.
Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much,
you.
Jackie.
Please
Shabbat
send us-
Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Please send us photos. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. You.
Hello.
Thank you.